Carolina Panthers have made the switch from Bryce Young to Andy Dalton. What impact will that have on Sunday versus the Raiders? We'll break it all down right here on Locked On Panthers.
You are Locked On Panthers, your daily Carolina Panthers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome into another edition of the Locked On Panthers podcast, the part of the Locked On Podcast Network. I'm your host, as always, Julian Council, talking Carolina Panthers with you every Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. Your team every day. That's our motto here on the Locked On Podcast Network. Subscribe or follow the show for free on YouTube or wherever you listen to your favorite podcast. And be sure to follow me, Julian Council, on Twitter at Julian Council. Why? Because on Wednesdays throughout the entirety of the regular season, I'm right here on the show answering your weekly Wednesday mailbag questions. And how you get those questions into me is by either adding me or DMing me. And of course, if you feel like it, you can follow me on Twitter, but it's not required. Just at me, DM me to get those questions in for next week's edition of the weekly Wednesday mailbag right here on Locked On Panthers. This episode of Locked On Panthers is brought to you by Prize Picks. Go to prizepicks.com/LockedOnNFL and use code all lowercase Locked On NFL to win $50 instantly when you play $5. The Panthers head out west to Sin City to face off against the Raiders on Sunday afternoon at the beautiful Allegiant Stadium. The first time the Panthers actually have played there. A great opportunity ahead for Carolina as they have made the change from Bryce Young to Andy Dalton. We've talked about it all week long, whether that was the right decision, what it means for Bryce moving forward, what it means for the organization moving forward, and what the Panthers are going to get out of Andy Dalton. Later on in the show, going to talk about maybe the best path forward for the Panthers with Andy and whether there's a future for him past the season, depending on how things play out. So I'm going to talk about that in a moment. First off, it's Friday. It's game time about to happen on Sunday. What we do here, as always, unless we get to a point in the season where it kind of doesn't make a lot of sense to talk about keys to victory because the season's like basically lost. We're not there yet. People keep asking me, is it Farmers Market Sunday? No, Andy Dalton's in. It's Andy Dalton time. The Red Rifle's here. I'm holding off on the Farmers Market until I see some other developments. We'll see what those are. Well, go ahead today. Going to do the keys to victory, letting y'all know what I think the Panthers got to do in order to come out victorious on Sunday. And really, they got to do what they haven't done the first 2 weeks of the season. That's look functional on offense, and that is the number one key that I have starting off here today. Looking back at some of the numbers from last year, the Panthers' 2023 offense generated minus 0.13 EPA per play. That's expected points added per play, which ranked 30th in the league. There are 32 teams in the NFL, if you did not know that. Through 2 weeks this season, the Panthers are averaging minus 0.37 EPA per play. That's the second worst mark for any offense through 2 games since 2007, ahead of only those 2019 Dolphins. So about 3 times as worse EPA-wise per play than they were last year. And that was a hellacious offense that somehow was not the worst offense in the league according to EPA per play. But so far, this has been a absolute dumpster fire of an offense with Bryce Young as their quarterback. I felt like the offensive line has protected. It's interesting looking at some of the stats where you look at Pro Football Focus. They have them 5th in their pass blocking stat. And you look at ESPN, their pass block win rate, the Panthers like 25th. I'm watching it. You're watching it. It's not like they've been giving up a lot of pressure. So whether ESPN's right or Pro Football Focus is right, you're right, I'm right. We all watch the games. Bryce has not been under siege. He's had opportunities to make some plays. Receivers have been open. He just was not playing well at all, and he was not allowing this offense to be functional. Carolina has 1 touchdown through 2 games, and we're pretty used to that. The Panthers didn't score a lot of touchdowns last year. That's been something they've really struggled to do the last couple of seasons, but still, like, come on, man. And they only total 7 first downs across 12 first half drives. Like, that is not good. That's not good so far. And offensive efficiency is a 0.70 through 2 games. That ranks last out of 608 instances for weeks 1 and 2 since it was first tracked back in 2006. So historically, this has been one of the worst offenses in the NFL over the last about 20 years. And that's just not the company you want to keep. And they've also been allowing their opponents to have historical days, like the Saints, the amount of points that they scored in that home opener and just the first game of the season period. The Chargers be able to get that win last week and some of the things they were able to do. The Panthers got to be functional on offense. And how can they be functional on offense? Number two, you got to get the playmakers involved. Diontae Johnson has 34 receiving yards on 49 routes run through 2 games. That is not why he was brought here to Carolina. We all felt like he was brought here to help out Bryce Young, but he was also brought here to be the number 1 receiver. Is he a true number 1 receiver in the NFL? No, but he was brought into Carolina to be the de facto number 1 wide receiver, to play the X, to be that first read, and to get the ball and be a playmaker and do things like DJ Chark couldn't do last year and all the other wide receivers that weren't named Adam Thielen, to take pressure off Thielen as well. And he's run out there 49 routes, has 34 yards. That's just not sustainable. It's not acceptable for this Dave Canales offense. And he was asked about this going into last week, how he's going to get Diontae Johnson the ball. And we did not see that, I think, in large part because the quarterback, Bryce Young, just did not look comfortable in the pocket, was not accurate, and really struggled like we had seen the week prior on the road against New Orleans. You got to get Diontae Johnson involved somehow with Andy Dalton now at the helm as the quarterback. Adam Thielen, Xavier Legette, not like either one of those guys have really been involved either. Thielen and Legette apiece have 7 targets. Legette got 0 on Sunday, home opener. All his friends and family there in town, and the guy was not involved at all. That's something that's got to change. And even Jonathan Mingo, he has 7 targets as well. That's just that can't be what the Panthers are doing. You got to get Johnson the ball, got to get Thielen the ball. Now we'll get an opportunity to see what Xavier Legette can do with a quarterback that seems, in my opinion, just based on what we've seen from Andy Dalton in the past and what we've seen from Bryce, at least these first 2 weeks of the season, a quarterback that can actually be able to operate the offense and potentially get them the ball on time and in space. Chuba Hubbard as well. The running game, we heard all offseason long from Dave Canales, they're going to be stubborn about running the football. The running backs have 28 carries combined through 2 weeks. A part of that is the fact they got behind early against New Orleans, but then last week, whether Dave is really committed or not, he said he was. We have not seen the kind of commitment. Chuba Hubbard has the first down of the game, gets a 12-yard run. He's telling the sideline to feed him. And then on the next play, they throw the football and Bryce Young gets intercepted. Why not just keep it on the ground, especially when your guy, Chuba Hubbard, had 6.4 yards per carry, 10 carries, 64 yards. Like, there's no reason why he should have only carried the ball 10 times in that game on Sunday. He has 16 rushing attempts so far this season and a 56.3 rushing success rate, which is 11th in the NFL. He's good, man. Get him the football. Get him involved. And speaking about being stubborn about running the football, which has not been the case, rushing play percentage so far, 37.62% of the time. That ranks 24th in the NFL, 29th in rushing yards per game so far, and then they're tied for last with 19.0 rushing attempts per game. Run the ball. You need to do that. Even if Andy Dalton's going to come out there, I don't want to see what we saw last year in Seattle with him throwing the ball 50 times. Dalton's got to be handing it off. Let's work the play action, run the ball, get you involved, get Miles Sanders involved, stop what we've seen the last couple of weeks, get the playmakers involved. And now that you feel like you have the quarterback in place to do that with Andy Dalton, let's see it happen. And then lastly, it goes back to the run game. The Raiders are awful when it comes to running the football. Talk about this with Hugh Myers on Thursday on that Locked On NFL crossover Thursday here on the show. The Raiders cannot run. They didn't run on the Chargers. They didn't run on the Ravens, and the Ravens have the best run defense in the league right now and had one of the best ones last year, so that's not really a surprise. The Panthers, though, are 31st ranked run defense according to EPA and 32nd in ESPN's run stop win rate. Meanwhile, the Raiders are 32nd ranked run offense according to EPA and last as well in ESPN's run block win rate. So something's got to give. The Raiders can't run the ball. The Panthers can't stop the run. Which one's going to win out? That's going to be a big factor in this game on Sunday and maybe the factor. Gardner Minshew got it done in the air last week against Baltimore. I haven't really seen this Panther secondary be tested that much. I know Derek Carr was really good week 1. We saw Rashid Shaheed back-to-back weeks, had that long touchdown, and there was miscommunication between really Jordan Fuller and J.C. Horn that led to a touchdown. I don't know who gets credited with that. I saw some people saying that second week in a row, J.C. Horn's going to have a touchdown. I mean, that wasn't really on him week 1. Either way, I think the secondary, from what we've seen so far, can probably handle Gardner Minshew. So don't let the Raiders be able to run the football. Samir White, who is their running back from Scotland County here in North Carolina, went to Georgia. He has a 27.3 rushing success rate right now in the NFL through 2 weeks. That is last in the league. Only 47 players have qualified through 2 weeks, but 27.3. That's terrible. Raiders rushing success rate in general is 28.2. That has to be bottom of the NFL as well. The Panthers have allowed opponents to score on 60.9% of the drives, which is somehow not the worst in the NFL as well. So that all get tied to how they've allowed New Orleans to run the football, how they've allowed Jim Harbaugh and the Chargers to run the football. You can't let the Raiders run the football on Sunday if you want to win this game. You got to put the game in Gardner Minshew's hands. I know he went on the road last week against the Ravens, but come on. You got to get better against the run. You got to get the playmakers involved. And first and foremost, you got to be functional on offense and not be what we've seen the first 2 weeks of the season. You can get the 1-2. It's not pretty how they got there. Certainly dramatic how they got there. 1-2 through 3 weeks was not going to be something that would surprise me with this team. I was hopeful for 2-1. Never felt like 3-0 was a possibility, but 2-1, 1-2, I'd take that. 3-0, obviously, but didn't think it was going to happen. 0-3, unacceptable. Got to find a way to win, and those are 3 ways I think they can do it on Sunday. And on Sunday, the Red Rifle, he's back. Andy Dalton, going to be the starting quarterback, and now I'm wondering what this means for the Panthers for the rest of the season and maybe even next season. We'll talk about that here in just a moment on Locked On Panthers. You've heard me talk a lot about FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Well, we have something a little different for you today, and I've been telling you this for weeks now, y'all. Now through September 22nd, and that is Sunday, so the clock is ticking. Do not delay. All FanDuel customers, that can be you, can bet $5. That's it. And get a 3-week free trial of NFL Sunday Ticket from YouTube and YouTube TV. Then with a YouTube TV base plan, you'll be able to watch every regular season Sunday afternoon out-of-market game. All you need is a Google account and a current form of payment, and you can cancel anytime. $5. That's all it's going to cost you. You don't have to pay for YouTube TV yet. You're going to be able to have like a trial when you start off YouTube TV. And if you like it, keep it. But guys, $5, 3 weeks free, NFL Sunday Ticket. It's really a great deal. All you got to do is just visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to download America's #1 sportsbook. The Bryce Young era appears to be over in Carolina, and I've had plenty of people hit me up via my DMs at Julian Council on Twitter telling me their thoughts on the situation, whether they believe it's truly over for Bryce. And he spoke to the media on Thursday and said that he has not played well enough, and if he had played better, he wouldn't be in a situation that he's in right now, which certainly is the case. And there's a little bit more nuance to it as well. I do not believe the organization put him in a position to succeed last year. And because he was not put into a position to succeed last season, they effectively broke him. And after 2 weeks, the item that they broke, they decided, no, we don't want to play with it anymore. Let's take it back. Like, it's just, I blame the Panthers in large part. I blame David Tepper, as y'all heard on Monday when they made this decision. But this is a decision they were going to have to make if Bryce continued to play like he played. And instead of waiting to see whether that was going to continue to be the case, they pulled the plug early. And I didn't agree with it. Still don't. But I understand why they did it. Doesn't mean have to like it. But that's where we're at right now. Bryce Young's on the bench. And I believe the Panthers will eventually trade him. Just reading some of the reports out there, like Jeremy Fowler, that Bryce Young and his camp are pissed. And I mean, rightfully so. They were screwed last year and given 2 weeks with Dave Canales. This year, you would have thought that he would have gotten more time. And I've even heard other people chime in, like Micah Parsons for the Cowboys. I guess has like a podcast on Bleacher Report, and he was commenting on it as well. I mean, Baker Mayfield has. LeBron James has said things. Everyone's got an opinion on it. We'll see how it plays out. I feel like Bryce is probably done here. They can still develop him this during the season on the bench, and we'll see. Maybe he gets another opportunity next year. I don't know. But what I do know now is that Andy Dalton's going to be the quarterback on Sunday, and whether they want to answer the question about how long this is going to be, he's going to probably be the quarterback next week when he faces off against his former team, the Cincinnati Bengals, and after that in Chicago as well. And as long as he stays healthy and really plays like he did last year in Seattle, don't think Bryce Young's going to get another opportunity to be the starting quarterback for the Carolina Panthers in 2024. So what's the best path forward now with Andy Dalton as a Panthers quarterback? Well, I guess we'll get to see what the offense looks like. We have not been able to see what this offense can do because Bryce has just been so bad where they have not been able to function. We'll truly get to see the run game, and if they're able to be balanced, will Dave Canales truly be dedicated and stubborn about running the ball? We'll find out potentially this week against that Raiders team. We'll get to see what Diontae Johnson, Adam Thielen, and really Xavier Legette can do at receiver. We have not been able to see. We saw what Thielen did last year. He was wide open on Sunday. Like, we know what Adam Thielen is, and I wonder what he is going to be this year at 34. But Diontae Johnson, have not been able to see him at all really be highlighted in this offense because of Bryce's struggles. And then Legette, again, didn't get a target last week. Going to get to see what that looks like and really get to evaluate the offense as a whole and evaluate the roster as well. The defense, I get the offense has not been able to sustain drives. The defense is not good, but we can now truly find out whether they're just terrible or if the offense's ineptitude played a big role in it. I think it's that they're just terrible, but we'll find out more on Sunday. And I don't know if this is the offense with the Raiders. That's going to tell you really just how good how bad or good the Panthers defense is. But they have an opportunity against an offense where I think they can, make some plays against them to show that they're better than what we've seen the first 2 weeks of the year. But really looking at it, if Andy Dalton is able to play at an above replacement level at quarterback here in Carolina for the rest of the year, the Panthers are probably going to move on from Bryce. They can trade him. They'll get a day 3 pick. We have seen that happen with Zach Wilson and Trey Lance and some other guys that have just not panned out, like Mac Jones as well. Like they're going to get something for Bryce Young. It's not going to be anything close to what they gave up to move up to number 1 to get him, but they're going to get something for Bryce Young when they likely trade him after the season. If Andy plays well enough, he's 36. He's going to turn 37 in October. It's possible the Panthers could ride with him again next year and not go after a quarterback in 2025. And I hate having to discuss draft talk in September when there's actual football on. I don't understand why anyone would want to talk about the draft when actual football is being played, but here we are because of the circumstances. Thank you so much, Carolina Panthers. But just kind of looking ahead, I just don't think, and this is going to be a team based off of what I've seen from the defense, even if the offense is able to get together, that's going to be drafting in like the top 10 or top 5. So I do not believe that they should be looking at a quarterback. I think that they should be looking to trade back, get assets, and continue to build this roster. This is still one of the worst rosters in the NFL, if not the worst roster in the NFL. We talk a lot about what they have at receiver. Adam Thielen is 34 years old, y'all, and they're running pop passes to him on offense in practice. What team in the NFL would want Adam Thielen doing that other than the Carolina Panthers? And I talked to somebody in Minnesota who I know who covers the team, and I was like, what was the deal there? Like, could he have gone back? And apparently the Vikings gave him a pretty small deal. And I was thinking about on Sunday when he's having his meltdown, he's got to be thinking, I made a mistake. I should have just stayed there in Minnesota, taken a lesser role, and at least had a chance to potentially win. I get it. Kirk got hurt last year, the 2-0 with Darnold. We've seen Darnold have success in Carolina, then fell off a cliff. So we'll see what happens there in Minnesota. But like you're featuring Adam Thielen. And like Diontae Johnson, I think is still a good player. He's not a true number 1. Those are your top 2 guys. Who on this offense like actually scares you? Like those are the top 2 guys, and this team used to have Christian McCaffrey and DJ Moore. So let's be honest here. Like the talent is not up to par at the NFL level to elevate anybody who's playing quarterback and to have a top tier kind of offense. Now there's a potential that a guy like Xavier Legette can break out and be what he was last year at South Carolina, but I don't think it's going to happen this season, and it may not happen next year. So we'll see whether that works out. I don't think Mingo is going to really work out as a guy who can help you out as number 2 or number 3 receiver anyways. And then we haven't seen Brooks yet, and JT Sanders hasn't necessarily impressed just yet. But again, you want to see him more as a pass catcher. He hasn't had the opportunities to really do that in the first 2 weeks. Like they have a lot to fix on the roster. Like they still need more offensive playmakers because Thielen and Johnson could both be gone after this year. Chuba's going to be gone after this year. Miles Sanders going to be gone after this year. Offensive line wise, they got Hunt and Lewis tied up for the future. But Corbett, he could be gone. Moton, we'll see what his future is going to be. Icky, that's still a question mark of whether he's your franchise left tackle. There are plenty of holes they got to fix here on this offense. Like Trimble could be gone after the year. Ian Thomas, I know y'all will be happy about that. He could be gone. They may have to rebuild in a way offensively and when it comes to the skill positions and even figure out who the quarterback's going to be after this season. But that could help if Andy Dalton plays well. And then defensively, if the defensive line's terrible outside of Derek Brown, And Ashawn's not going to be back after the season. Same thing with Shai Tuttle. Some of the younger guys may be gone at corner. You got JC. You're going to figure out his contract and the whole safety room. At least the top three, they're all out of contract after the season. A linebacker like Shaq, he's a free agent after this year. Josie Jewell could come back again next year. Like, there's so many spots on this roster where the Panthers just got to figure out who their long-term guys are going to be. Like, they want JC to be a long-term guy. They already signed Derek Brown to be a long-term guy. Offensively, who is that going to be other than like Hunt and Lewis right now? So I just don't look at this as I didn't look at it before. A couple of years ago, as a team that is a quarterback away. There are a lot of positions and depth pieces away from even being a contending team, even if they have or don't have that quarterback. So if they end up being in the top 5 again, if Andy plays well enough, just looking at it right now on September 20th, 2024, like, go with Dalton again next year. If he looks good enough, find out some other guys who can come in and be weapons, go draft some more, get some more picks, and build this thing the right way. They've tried to cut corners, and that's why they're here. Like, you can blame Bryce, you can be on Bryce for not playing well, but the Panthers are in this situation because of all the times that they have just failed to be patient and to build the roster the proper way. Like, we're right back to basically 2020 in my mind. So 4 wasted years. No, not everything's wasted time because you learn things and you hopefully get better through the experiences. But when you're looking at it, 2020 aways, 21 aways, 22, 23 aways, and potentially now 24 aways. So 5 potential wasted seasons. And I hate to put it that way, but if you just, really it's 21, 22, 23, and 24. Like 2020, be happy there's football, global pandemic, all that. But after that, they should have just been focused on building the roster. And you can say hindsight 2020. I came out here in March 2021, one of the first episodes I did, and said, just keep Teddy Bridgewater. Don't go after Sam Darnold, and be patient, build the overall roster. That's what you needed to do. And they didn't do it. So here we are, possibly going to be in that same situation after the season. And depending on how Andy Dalton plays, it's going to be the same message I gave y'all back in March 21. Stick with Dalton, be patient, go get some guys in, and then when the time is right, drop in a quarterback. So we'll see what works out here. Would love to see Bryce Young maybe redshirt the rest of the year, get an opportunity next year, just based off of the history of this organization recently and just how most NFL organizations work. It's unlikely that's going to be the case for the Carolina Panthers. So to me, that's the best path forward of Andy Dalton here as Panthers quarterback through the rest of the season and then potentially heading into 2025. The Panthers have some injuries on that defensive line. As we've talked about, they got to find a way to stop the run. Going to make it difficult if they're going to be out 2 of their starters, knowing that Derek Brown's already out for the rest of the season. We'll talk about that here in just a moment on Locked on Panthers. PrizePicks is America's #1 daily fantasy sports app with over 5 million active members. PrizePicks is the easiest and most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. Unlike other apps on PrizePicks, it's just you against the numbers, and all you do is pick more or less on 2 to 6 player stat projections and watch the winnings roll in. You can now win up to 100 times your money on PrizePicks with as little as 4 correct picks. I'm going to give you a free one right now. One Caleb Williams passing yard gets you 1 win on PrizePicks every week in September. That's right. Only 1 yard gets you an automatic win every football weekend in September. 4 weeks of free W's. Don't miss this deal on PrizePicks because it's gone when September ends. Download the PrizePicks app today and use code LOCKEDONNFL and get $50 instantly when you play $5. That's code LOCKEDONNFL on PrizePicks. Get $50 instantly when you play $5. You don't even need to win to receive the $50 bonus, y'all. It's guaranteed. PrizePicks, run your game. Panthers, Raiders on Sunday afternoon, 4:05, I believe, Eastern time. The line, according to our friends over at FanDuel, is at Panthers plus 6.5. And if you all have gone to Vegas, I know this was one of the big trips for everybody to go to, this one and Munich, and they're far enough apart we can do both. And I want to know people out there who, I had somebody hit me up who lives in LA, is like, hey, are you going to be in Vegas this weekend? It's like, no, I'm not going to be in Vegas. Like, I can't go. I was in Vegas back in March for NASCAR. And I honestly, I was like, I'm good, man. I'm only here for like a day. I'm not trying to get in any trouble. And I don't think that's the kind of place I need to be at. I got too many things going on at home to be like out here in Vegas getting crazy. But I hope y'all are able to really drown all these sorrows the first 2 weeks and have a great time while all the Panther fans are out there in Vegas this weekend. And we'll see if the Panthers can get it done. So line 6.5. I told you all on yesterday's show, if you want to just try to, maybe pay for your trip, go ahead and do an alt line because Panthers have gotten whipped the first 2 weeks. The hope is that that's not the case, of course, but hey, always have a backup potentially and make some money, maybe be able to pay for your trip. We'll see. But looking at the injury report, everything's pretty clear for them outside of the defensive line. Last week, Shai Tuttle was injured in that game. Did not get much information about that because there was other things going on this week as far as the quarterback being benched. But Shai Tuttle got a foot injury, did not practice on Wednesday or on Thursday. I'm doing this on Friday before Dave Canales speaks. It's kind of been the time slotted pick so far this season. Just to do it on Friday, kind of wait to see what happens and if there's any news before. But it looks like he's not going to play. A'Shawn Robinson also been dealing with an injury. He has a knee. He did not practice on Wednesday, but was limited on Thursday, which trends towards that he's likely going to play, probably be questionable to play whenever they put out that report. So Robinson, if he's healthy, you already got Thurman, you got Ray, you got PV, who are also on the active roster. And then you look at the practice squad. Deshaun Williams, remember him, was a starter here last year before going to Buffalo in the offseason, getting cut. He's back here. And TJ Smith, one of those, maybe both, would be elevated. Now, if Robinson and Tuttle are both out, I'm expecting Tuttle to be out. I'm expecting Robinson, based off of just the injury report, to be available on Sunday. If both are out, then Williams and Smith are both going to be elevated. If only one of them, I would guess that Deshaun Williams, being a veteran, he would get the opportunity to go out there and to start in that, or not to start, but to play in that game. It would be Robinson. It would be Nick Thurman, LeBron Ray, Jaden Peavy, and Deshaun Williams. So expect Williams, Smith, maybe both, to be elevated just to be able to get some depth there and to make up for likely the loss of Shai Tuttle. And of course, Derek Brown's already out. And that's one thing that to make it very difficult for this team to be better against the run. You're missing Derek Brown for the rest of the season. You have Shai Tuttle, who really has not been, maybe this is going to be actually a positive because he's been terrible since he's gotten to Carolina and he's not been good at all these first 2 weeks. Maybe Thurman, Ray, Peavy, William Smith come out and they play better than Tuttle, and the Panthers just can bench him. Because that's one of the things, too, about the whole quarterback situation here in Carolina. It ain't like Bryce is the only one that's been awful. And you look at just the entirety of the defense and the guys who are up front, supposedly trying to stop the run, they're giving up 199.5 yards per game on the ground. Why are those guys not getting benched? Like, that's the one thing that we got to always talk about when we look at the quarterback. Like, is everybody else playing well? Well, when a defensive tackle gets benched, you don't care. But when the quarterback does, obviously it's big news, and it should be. It's the number 1 overall pick from a year ago. The Panthers give up a ton. Like, I understand that. Like, I'm not ignoring that, the context there. But as far as this has been the worst unit on the roster through first 2 weeks outside of the quarterback. Someone's got to step up. They guys got to play better, and they don't. The Panthers cannot win on Sunday because if you can't stop the run, you can't stop anything in the NFL. Not my words. Those are J.C. Horn's words, and we'll see if it plays out that way on Sunday where Robinson plays, Tuttle's out, and then Williams or Smith gets elevated, and Thurman, Ray, Peavy, or the aforementioned Williams and Smith step up, and the Panthers are able to stop the Raiders and force Gardner Minshew to try to do it again back-to-back weeks through the air with his arm. All right, it's going to wrap up this edition of the Locked On Panthers podcast by our Locked On Podcast Network, hosted by yours truly, Julian Council. Again, y'all, subscribe or follow the show for free on YouTube or wherever you listen to your favorite podcast. And be sure to follow me, Julian Council, on Twitter at Julian Council, where on Wednesdays I will be answering your weekly Wednesday mailbag questions throughout the entirety of the regular season. All you got to do is either at me or DM me to get those questions into me following the game on Sunday. But in the meantime, be safe, be happy, be whole. As always, keep pounding, and I'll talk to y'all live here on Sunday, probably around like 7:30, 8 o'clock. So tune in, and hopefully we'll be talking about a win. The Red Rifle, baby.